Thanks for tuning in here at the Real ResQ Podcast, powered by Vertical Helicast. You can go to verticalhelicast.com to not only listen to this podcast, but we got the Hangar Z, the Helicopter Podcast, and Vertical MRO Podcasts, plural, because there are a couple there. Again, go to verticalhelicast.com. It's all part of the Vertical Podcast Network. Absolutely love being a part of it. Now, a quick shout out to our sponsors for this specific episode. Bell, Above and Beyond Flight. Check them out at bellflight.com. Ready Swimmer, training the body, sharpening the mind, and building leaders. Our mission to make you ready. Check them out at readyswimmer.com. And of course, I've got to throw in the realrescuestore.com. Get all your swag to support this podcast at therealrescuestore.com. Now, coming up next, we're continuing our talk on the Western North Carolina relief efforts after Hurricane Helene. These three guys that are coming on are either active duty and or retired United States Coast Guard members. They took their own time and money to go out there and help those in need. So please welcome our next three guests and their stories, Mr. Steve Chopek, Chris Neff, and Claude Morrissey. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ Podcast. I've got a little more North Carolina stories coming to us, Western North Carolina to be specific, after Hurricane Helene did a bit of devastation out there. And what I like about this coming up is that we've got three guys joining us, and two of them are currently in the United States Coast Guard as aviation maintenance technicians, flying in flight mechanics, fixing the helicopters, doing some great things. And then, I'll name, ready? We've got Steve Chopek, and we've got Chris Neff. What's up, gentlemen? Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
You too.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys coming on. And then without further ado, I have to introduce my boy, U.S. Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 537. He came on this podcast, episode 155. We've already heard some epic stories, and he is not done helping people in distress. Mr. Claude Morrissey. What's up,
Hey,
dude?
Quinny. My two gay friends, Steve and Chris.
And that is exactly how this is going to roll today. I'm very excited.
So you're gonna have a lot of editing.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
So, what I want to touch on a little bit with this is what I think is great is that you guys went up there to help Western North Carolina kind of on your own, volunteered your own time. But what's cool about this is like our world is U.S. Coast Guard aviation side is all about search and rescue. It's what we do, right? So you guys saw the need and you went up to help. And I think that's amazing. So let me start with Claude. How did you get up there? What brought you to Western? How did you even get called to go up there? Because you went up there with some bigger equipment and stuff too, right?
Yeah, we rolled up with this thing called the Sherf. It's like an all-terrain, floats up rivers and goes over freaking rocks. It's pretty badass. It's like a slow version of the H-60, you know. You get in the water, you know.
Except for it doesn't fly. I got it.
Yeah, it doesn't fly, and it just goes up the river. But you can see everything. You know, you can spot bodies, which we did, and, you know, get FEMA teams back up, load stuff up, and roll around with that. But, I was just working for the union, and I kind of had it out with a couple of operators, and I was like, man, I needed to go do something. So made a quick phone call. Next thing I know, I'm heading to North Carolina with William, a guy named William Hoover. And, you know, we got there probably Wednesday night, and it was really dark, so we couldn't go any further because the roads were really messed up, trees and stuff. We were on a trailer. This thing Sherp was on a trailer. And so yeah, when daylight hit, you're like, holy shit, how do we get in here without running anything over, without getting killed ourselves, you know? And you know, things are always scary in the dark, right, guys? So, yeah, so I'm on there, and I kind of call back, and Steve goes, hey, man, I would have went with you if you would have asked. I'm like, so you're going to be bashful? The only time in your life is like, you want, like, let's go. You know what I mean? But so I kind of sound the alarm, like, hey man, there's a need out here. Huge need. You know, Chris and Steve, they and a bunch of other guys, a bunch of other active duty guys, retired guys, just showed up. We actually went up at Banner Elk Airport under this guy called Tate. I'm like, who's this guy Tate? Because Justin Garinger, swimmer in Elizabeth City, he's the one that turned us on to it. He goes, I'll meet you up there. So we got up there, and like we were like the first boots on the ground there, man. We're the first people they saw, and it just built in from this little airport, private airport that FEMA couldn't touch or shut us down to a guys. What it turned into? I mean, it turned into a freaking city, didn't it? You know?
Yeah, pretty much. There was hundreds of volunteers at one point.
Hundreds,
Just
hundreds. You know,
supplies coming in by the truckload.
plane load, like little like bush planes from last year. Like they drop off a package of Band-Aids and they take off, and it's like, hey, they need them, I guess, you know. But you know, a case of water. It was just weird. It was just there was. I think at one point was it like 300 planes that came in one day, and like 60 or 70 trucks. And top of that, this guy Tate, he's got this thing called Sentinel Foundation, and they're like all ex tier 1 operators in the Army, and they're like doing rescue now because they needed to get done. So it's just it was really epic to see sound the alarm and being there from the beginning to see what it grew into was awesome. But you know, yeah, that was cool. I mean, these guys showed up. We sounded the alarm, and Steve and Chris and a bunch of other guys just showed up, and they're like, hey, how do we help? What do we got to do? We got to move stuff off people's houses. We got to move stuff off people's cars. We got to get old, fly-in medications. But I'll let these guys talk a little bit because I'll dominate the whole conversation. You know me.
Yeah, we know. We know. It's fine. All right. Well, Steve, how did you Steve, how did you get involved? You got a phone call, and again, you're active duty. So like you need to take leave, you need to do something, you need to make a couple phone calls and be like, hey guys, I want to go help. This is how I do it. Because you can't just kind of roll out, but I think you kind of did.
Yeah, I did. So I got a phone call from Claude, and him and I were going back and forth since the day he went out there. And it finally got to the point where I was like, hey, I just got to go. I got to be there myself. So I called Claude. I said, hey, I'm coming out. And he said, no problem. Just bring your camping gear, bring some boots, some socks, and some warm clothes. He said that they had all the supplies there that we needed as far as food and water. But he said we probably would be camping out in the cold, which thank God we weren't, because it did get cold in the evenings. We ended up staying at well, first it was Dolly Parton's house, then it turned into Eric Church's house.
It was Eric.
And then I think the final it was Paul Walker's, right?
No, it was Walker's thing, but it was Eric Church's house. So
get the heck out of here.
Dude, we stayed. I slept
at Dolly Parton's house, at Eric Church's house. Are you kidding?
Yeah, dude, I'm not lying. Like, Chris, am I right? We walked up. We go, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like, I was outside sleeping in a truck. The guy with me is ready to kill me because I snore. So William's like, I'm going to murder you next tonight. So I had to go sleep in like this maintenance garage. It was a shit show, man, at first, and then all of a sudden, these guys from Mobile that route, they're like, hey, why don't you come over to our house? So. It was crazy, man. It was fucking awesome. And Eric, I actually slept in Eric's bed, and I took a huge dookie in his bathroom every day. I mean, I just pulled into a hover and released the flight mech, So.
All right,
but yeah, I ended up. I drove out there with Josh Harris and EJ Richardson. He's an officer now. They're both from Aviation Technical Training Center here in Elizabeth City. So all three of us drove out. We got there. It took us about 13 and a half to 14 hours to get there just because of the road closures, and it kept redirecting us on different traffic. But yeah, I didn't put in leave. I didn't ask for leave. I'm currently a detached duty recruiter. So I pretty much run the office myself out of Elizabeth City. I didn't see the need to, ask permission. I just went. I wasn't going to be told no. So I just packed up a bag and headed out. Probably not the right thing to do. Could I have gotten in some trouble? Maybe, but it was the right thing to do in my mind. So
That's pretty.
that's
cool.
how I ended up getting there.
Yeah, he put a. I mean, these guys. I mean, we know Quinny from in the Coast Guard how quick he can turn on you, and these guys put it out there. Even these active duty guys that came out, if they got hurt, it was going to be a big deal. I knew it. I actually saw these two idiots take off in his helicopter.
Oh God.
First cab. The guy's got a first cab. He's like 80. I'm like, I've been with a lot of guys, and this guy's named Terry, and these two knuckleheads, my two best friends right here, jump in this helicopter, and Terry's like, just fire her up, and he's like 80, and all of a sudden I see him take off. I take a picture. I go, man, I hope they make it back. And was the ride worth it, guys, or what? What happened? He was doing gun runs. He was doing gun runs on survivors. You know what I mean? So flashbacks. What happened, Steve? What happened, Chris?
I definitely would not go up in it again. To say the least. It was what, a Bell 206, right, Chris?
Yeah, a little Jet Ranger.
Chris is definitely in co-pilot, grabbing the controls.
Yeah, this guy. I mean, he flew it like he flew it in Vietnam. I mean, he was not afraid. There's no doubt about that. We pulled into one landing zone, which it really wasn't a cleared landing zone. There was power lines, there, fences, people. But yeah, he pulled in. I'm clearing this guy down like I'm all over the place in the back of that helo. I'm clearing this guy down. He finally touches the skids on the ground, and when he lowered the collective, I mean, he hit the tail rotor, like the paddles hit the freaking ground, and I mean, when they hit it jarred everyone. It was a wake-up call. He pulled it back up into a hover. He lowered it again, and he nailed it again.
Oh my gosh!
So that was one of them oh shit moments, Definitely everyone was white knuckling it, including Terry, the pilot.
This guy he flew from Ohio. He's 80 years old, and he's like, I'm volunteering my time.
Good dude.
The little birds
Amazing
out there. The little birds we had out there were all volunteer. Like,
hold on, let's go back to Steve getting in trouble for not putting in leave.
Well, wait,
right? So
let's come back to that. Let's get back to that real quick. Chris, how did you get involved? Like, what brought you there? Because you actually took leave. We got Chris, a little bit of a rebel over there. Be like, I'm leaving. I'm out. Call me later. I don't have stuff there. I can't help you.
Same thing. I have just a little piece of equipment that Claude said could be useful, and he called me, and he already had another guy coming, and so he said, load it up in your trailer and come out here with another guy, and that guy met me at my shop in the morning, and I called my boss and just said, hey, I'm taking leave for the week, and he's like, okay, and just kind of took leave, and midweek when I got some self service late at night, we had pretty decent service when we were close to where we were operating out of. He had texted me and said, hey, I got you. Great guy, Senior Chief Nick Davenport. He got me permissive orders, which was pretty awesome.
I actually want to shout out the Coast Guard for this one, and you guys' as unit specifically. Permissive orders is just saying you don't have to take vacation time. We're going to give you it's your own money, your own cost, but you're on orders to go out to Western North Carolina, and they really hooked you guys up with that. So shout out to the Coast Guard and your command for that. It's absolutely incredible. Well done to them. So thanks for shouting that out too, because I think that's amazing. They could have done something a little different, and they didn't. They had your back on it. I love that. So
they could have did a lot of things different though, but we won't go down that road right now.
Yeah,
we should have been out there in the back of a helicopter.
Well, from what I listened to, again, I don't want to throw opinions out there. I don't want to throw anything like that. But from what I have heard from boots on the ground people is that it took, because lack of communication from being out there to request a response, it was like nobody knew until all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, we need this. And we'll leave it at that because there was other
Yeah, I mean, we're not here to bag on anybody. We're here to talk about some cool stuff with some really heroes. So these guys are my heroes. So I'm not here to, so I'm not here to hammer the Coast Guard. I do that enough.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not here to hammer anybody. Like there were other government agencies that did show up. They did get there, and everybody has their own opinion about it. not what I care about. I care about what we did, what you personally did. So
These sexy heroes.
I know. Look at you guys, man.
Heroes like a sandwich.
All right, so Chris, you mentioned Steve might have gotten in a little trouble. Steve, did you get in trouble for leaving?
No, I didn't get in no trouble.
All right.
No.
No, not at all.
They didn't even know he was gone. He's the guy with the red stapler.
Yeah.
Fuck in the basement there. That's what he is.
They did.
The guy with the red
They did
stapler.
not know I was
Oh,
gone.
you still work here? Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, my command is out of Washington, D.C. So getting in touch with them is a job in itself, trying to get any type of communication with them. So, and I'm not bashing them. I'm just telling the facts. Like that entity up there at headquarters, they have so much going on. Listen, they didn't care. They would have gladly given me permissive orders to go out there, but I didn't even need to even ask. I just packed up and headed out. Like I said, I wasn't going to ask permission and them tell me no, because I would have went anyway. So
we had a lot of other entities out there, active duty, retired active duty, and they had to get permission and stuff like that. So that's what's unique about the Coast Guard. If you're doing the right thing, they're going to back you up. So that's what's awesome about the Coast Guard and all the other services as well. I mean, we had retired SEALs, we had active duty SEALs, we had Delta guys, we had Green Berets, we had everything from Cub Scouts on up to like the lethal killers of the world. And the Coast Guard was somewhere near the bottom, near the Cub Scouts, I felt. But dude, they respected the hell out of us, dude. I mean, they really did. I mean, to have a tier 1 operator that's, probably Chris could tell you more stories. He was with them the whole time, but they respected us, right, Chris? I mean,
Oh yeah, for sure.
We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
Bell is proud to sponsor Vertical Helicasts and their vision to hold meaningful mission, safety, and best practice conversations in the helicopter industry. The lessons learned from these conversations will undoubtedly shape the future of both new and veteran helicopter operators.
Well, I'm ready for a story, guys. Like, what did you guys see? What did you encounter when you got there? And I already understand. All right, so you're flying in a Jet Ranger. I know you guys were flying in the little Robinson helicopters. I know that. So hit me. What do you guys got? What stands out to you guys in your rescue efforts out there?
I would say Terry, not to beat this helicopter right up too much, but the guy was so passionate. Every morning we would have like a morning brief, and he was just so thankful to be out there doing this. And being a Vietnam pilot, he was probably doing a lot different in his helicopter for Vietnam. But the guy was in tears every morning, just talking about how much gratitude he had and how grateful he was to be out there and to be able to help. He sat in an FBO for a couple of days prior to getting out there, and people were just kind of, brushing him off. And he was like, "Where do I go?" And I forget how, Steve, you might be able to back me up. Somehow he heard about the Sentinel Foundation and Elk River Airport where we were, and he felt compelled to come out there and sleep it outside, just running his helicopter ragged. I think he burned the checklist because I never saw a checklist, which made me a little nervous. But well, it was pretty cold at night. He might have used it as a fire starter.
Oh, and this dude was sleeping outside too. This helicopter pilot, like this 20-year-old Coast Guard pilot comes up and imagines, like, I got to get a Hilton at best. You're like, hey, dude, like, come on, really? This guy's literally sleeping under the helicopter. You know what I mean? Like Weston Dodson, he'd be like, oh my God, I got to have a Hilton or Marriott, What do you mean La Quinta? No way. So, fags.
Oh my God.
Fags. So, when I got there, Quinny, I was early on, and we had done a lot of the patrols, and we were finding a lot of, I'm not going to get too much into this, a lot of remains, and we work with FEMA to kind of identify them and process them. That sucked. I mean, there was no rescue, so that was hard for me to go from a rescue swimmer, at least, going to Katrina and having the Katrina experience, and then going to this was a whole different mindset, and it was almost like, I don't know. It was just tough at first, and then these guys came. It lightened the mood up a lot, So having my boys there and seeing them go out and do awesome stuff, like any task there was, whether the guy was a Green Beret, a guy was an Army guy or Navy guy, these guys all came together. Chris would lead the charge. Same with Steve. They would just get stuff done. It was from watching from afar, they'd call me Blister because I wouldn't work at all. They call me Blisters. So I'd show up in the worker zone and start clapping and stuff. But, one thing I'll say about it is one night everybody was donating clothes and we had to get rid of these clothes. And I'm like, Steve, you got to stay. And Steve goes, we got to stay. I go, man, I want to go back and stay at Eric Church's house. You know what I mean? He's like, dude, we got to get this done. So like, no lie, all the coasties, everybody, Tier 1 operators, Navy SEALs, dog handlers were like unloading this one truck. And like, now we're going to reload. And everybody's like, oh my God. And I'm like, just get it done, pussies. You know how motivated we are, And Chris, would it take us how long? I mean,
I don't know, 15 minutes. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
We had worked 14 hours that day probably, and that truck came in, we got it all unloaded, and everybody's like, oh, finally, and then it's like, oh, we're going to load that thing back up. And we were like, no.
I'm talking little kids I'm yelling at. I'm like, move faster, kid, and they were just doing it. And these guys, it was just funny to watch. We came from a little airport of, like 3 or 4 planes coming in the day before to when we left, like hundreds of planes. 5, 6, 10, 15 tractor trailers, from one little hangar to 5 hangars overflowing with supplies. It was just, It was something to see. It really was.
And I do got to give a shout out to those air traffic controllers. A lot of those guys were volunteers standing out on the runway. And during the day, it was hot. The sun was blaring. It was beautiful weather, really. But they were out there for 12, 13 hours a day. And a lot of them were on leave.
Yep, long lead from Bragg and stuff. But the thing that was crazy the most was just watching how it came from like the first day when you're like, we're going to have a damn mid-air collision here or a ground mishap or something to go into, when I got there with this shirt, it was in the morning, like, just get on the runway. We're like, you're clearing us down the runway? Like, this is an active runway, And, you're like, I'm looking out. I'm like, I hope nothing's going to land on my head. You know what I mean? Like a 60 come in and, wave off. Then I'm all scared. But, they really organized this Sentinel Foundation. They took something and they put the right people together and they ran with it. It was nuts.
Mr. No Permission Steve, he doesn't even need permission to drive a truck down an active runway either. He didn't ask about that.
Yeah. Almost.
I was in the back of the truck pounding on a window. I was riding in the bed of the truck and I'm pounding on the window. I'm like, hey, we can't do this.
I'll tell you, I'll tell you, probably the coolest thing was probably the neatest thing that I seen when I was out there is the first day the second day that we were there, we got tasked with delivering generators and heaters and some medical supplies up into the higher elevations of Burnsville, which was totally devastated by landslides and stuff. I mean, just roads completely wiped out. These people had no way of getting in or out. And here we are trekking this stuff up into, little areas where houses are and people that needed this stuff desperately because it was freezing in the evening up there. But we got hooked up with a couple that were calling in saying, hey, we need help out here. We need people to come out here with supplies, this, that, and the other. So we ended up hooking up with this lady. And I'm telling you, when we pulled up, I thought, oh my gosh, these people look like Antifa. I mean, they had pins all over their faces and head and like tattoos. Half of her head was painted black, the other half was painted white. And it's like, it was cool to see with the way of the world that's going right now, the state of everything that we're in. People are so divided, but everyone came together. And it didn't matter. Like, you put all your differences and everything aside to go help people that were in need. That was super, super cool to see. Something that I'll remember forever.
Yeah, Steve, I totally agree with you. I absolutely love what everybody was doing and how many people came together. It doesn't matter at that moment in time. It doesn't matter what side you're on, what team you're on. There's so many people that came together just to help those in need. And one of the other things that I found very interesting while I was up there is because I was at the Harley Davidson shop in Swinona. And that's where, again,
that's where we landed to get fuel.
Of course it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had fuel trucks that were volunteered. They actually had an approach plate and a takeoff area. Like the whole whole thing was set up. It was amazing. But like seeing all the people, and then your guys are telling me that you're in another area with hundreds of people that are coming through to help. Like, I want people to understand that this isn't just hundreds of people. This is thousands of people. Hundreds here, hundreds here, hundreds here. Like, it was a lot of people that were volunteering their time and efforts to do this. So it's cool, man. Steve, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Claude, I'm going to come back to you real quick, because one of the things you talked about was when you were driving in, you were doing a lot of, like, unfortunately, it was body recovery, like, not fun.
Well, that's the word. And, you know, like, you'd have a body and you're like, hey, FEMA, the body's over here. And
Yeah.
they would be like, okay, we'll get down there. I'm like, okay, sense of urgency? Not really. You know, and they would get it done. I'm not going to bag on FEMA, but
Nope. But
yeah,
the other part about this, the reason I want to bring that up, though.
What's that?
The reason I want to bring that up, though, is because like, what I want people to understand is that that's us doing our job for not only search and rescue, but search and recovery, to give some sort of closure to the family.
Yeah.
Where's my family member? I know they were out there, they were in this, and now you have a way to be like, oh.
I mean, even finding the one lady's clothes or a picture, or, you know, because these houses were standing and they hear the stories, like, because, you know, you're in there, we were in the same area for, you know, 8-10 hours. And, you know, you talk to people, hey, where's the last person they saw? Well, I saw them up there in the house, and they were in the house for like, they were making breakfast, and they said they were fine. Everything was open. And next thing you know, they're on top of this roof, and they're going down the roof together, holding hands. And the husband gets thrown off. He lives, she dies. And he's like, just let me die. You know, you're talking to that guy, and you're just like, I hate it's bringing me goosebumps, but it's like, you know, and as a swimmer, we pick people up out of the water and we're good. We go back 15 minutes later, we're back at the station. But to be embedded with these people for hours and hours, and to see their anguish and see them picking through every pile of debris, and there was just debris the whole house is just pancaked into the side of a cliff, you know. So
roads, bridges, like, just completely gone.
Even the destruction,
like, not even there no more.
The destruction would give you a bad feeling, right, Chris? Like, the destruction, just seeing the destruction, like, man, I feel terrible. Like, what happened there? And it's almost like a trigger for PTSD. I hate to say it, but it was terror. It was devastation. We used to talk, Quinny, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm a big, strong dude, but, you know, Steve came up and he gave me a deep French kiss, and he got me sick, so I had to get some penicillin. And there was actually mobile clinics to help you. So people were trying to help you. I met a couple of good people there that were there to help. And, you know, it was really good, man, how much support came out. But the bodies, they weren't bodies. They were just remains. You know, there's nothing recognizable about them. There's nothing to, it's not, you know, I've been through a lot of horrific stuff in the Coast Guard, but this was like a next level stuff. This is like post-apocalypse. So.
Well, I can tell you right now, there are a lot of people that are very thankful that they have some sort of closure and they know. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Chris, what stands out to you?
Kind of the same thing. One of the days I was out with Eric Tanzi. He does the Failure to Stop podcast. And we had a day of, I want to say we told this family, you know, we're going to do everything we could to try to find them. Basically, there was a little girl who was not home at the time, but her mom and dad her grandmother and her 12-year-old brother were in the house. I don't want to say next door, because to tell you the truth, I couldn't tell you how far away it was because nothing at all was left. But she was in the house next door. They were family from Ukraine, and they could hear the four of them getting swept into the water and getting swept away.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So we looked for them for hours and hours. We dug through rubble for hours. We could smell. I can't unsmell it. Yeah. We never did find them. As far as I know, they were never found, but I personally found some pictures of the family. And I don't want to say it haunts me, but it's a constant thought that comes up, because we couldn't go back and tell that lady that, hey, we found him. But we found several pictures, which was scary because in all reality, I bet you we walked over probably 100 people without really knowing, just because they were so buried. I was walking on top, I think like 6 different houses. We were literally just walking right on top of these houses trying to dig through. You're like, oh, this is probably the living room floor. This is probably the kitchen floor. Here's part of the toilet. And parts of these houses were just up in trees. And I don't mean 10 or 15 feet up in the tree. I mean 30 feet up.
Yeah.
So cars upside down where you see like an inch or two of the tire. So that's how deep this mud is. We had several dogs with us. I think at one point we had about 6 dogs. And depending on the way the wind was blowing and depending on who lifted what piece of siding or what piece of camper or whatever, you could smell. I mean, it was certainly dead people, and not being able to find them sucked, but also in another way, like Claude was saying, they weren't people at that point. You might have seen an arm or something. You've seen what it did to the steel I-beams. I can't imagine what it did to the human body. So,
Yeah.
It's certainly the smells. I think it was called Toe River Campground, if I'm not mistaken, but not one single mobile home or camper or anything left. And a lot of people were living in those campers, permanently, even though they were RVs and stuff. But nobody that was home during that, Quinny, survived. Impossible. There was a pool table in the middle of the field. That was it. That was the only remnants of that entire thing.
They knew this thing was coming, but they didn't expect it's rain. Like, you don't expect the rain to wash the side of the mountain out,
Yeah, especially when you live 40, 50, 60 feet up off the surface,
Yeah.
But what was really cool, I think, going back to kind of what Steve said, not only the people that you ran into that suffered from this, but the people that we ran into that came to help to do the same thing. We were all kind of like-minded. We were in that house. There's probably, gosh, when the word got out and everybody was sick of sleeping in the cold, I think we had like 32 people in that house one night.
Which house? Dolly Parton's or Eric Church's?
Eric Church's. Eric Church's.
Yeah.
It's blowing my mind that you guys are sleeping in Eric Church's house.
I slept in his bed, yo. I slept in Eric Church's. Where he made love is where I slept.
Wait, hold on. Did he know you guys were taking over the house, or did he say, "Hey,
He
go take
donated
my house"?
They all donated it.
Oh, what a nice guy, man!
Dude,
Okay.
all of them.
Wow.
All right.
I called
Richard.
We don't got
Richard Head, you can take that up with Quinny. Richard Head, you can take that up with Quinny after the podcast. But Richard Head did get in the hot tub butt naked after one guy picked the lock. The only thing we didn't have access to was the hot tub. The lock was picked in about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Claude was in it butt naked 30 seconds later.
All right, for the record, you got to think about this. You're with top tier guys, like level 1 people all the way around. Like, come on, man, you know that there's nothing that we can't get into. It's the way we roll.
Dude,
True.
They loved us. I mean, tier guys are like, the Coast Guard's like, you guys aren't pussies. I'm like, no, we're fucking badass. You know what I mean? And they love making fun of the SEALs. So it was so much fun to hear them talk about SEALs. There was one girl was a vet tech. She showed up and she was from Virginia Beach. She's good looking. I'm like, so I walk up to the tier guy. I go, I'm going to find out what her team or husband's doing. He goes, oh yeah, she's definitely a team's husband. And I go, hey, I should help my dog out because we rescued some dogs and I bought a dog from a guy. Well, yada, yada, yada. You know how it is. But you know how shit happens when I'm there. I go, hey, so what team's your husband on? She goes, how did you know? I says, well, you're good looking Virginia Beach. So obviously you're a SEAL wife. He goes, he's on the West Coast. And all the other like Delta guys started laughing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So
How do you know they're a SEAL, Claude?
they're going to tell you. I said you got the hierarchy of a SEAL, a rescue. Like the thing about these Army guys is they're so freaking humble. Like you can spot a rescue from a mile away. Shades, hair gel, short shorts, tattoos. I'm way cool. That's a swimmer, right? But like these Army guys, you're like normal Joes. You're like, you go to the auto parts store bumping into this guy. Like this one guy, Cal, I became really good friends with him and his wife. She's an RN working out there as medical. He's a JTAC. Like he's dropping bombs on people's heads. And you would look, I'm like, I walk up to him, I go, hey man, I said, I ever tell you like Jeffrey Dahmer a little bit? He goes, no, he's I've heard that once before, but I go, when you're getting in my truck, I want to make sure you're not Jeffrey Dahmer. You know what I mean? And they laugh and
Here, eat this bag of dicks.
yeah. Oh man, I was just dude, it was like, Quinn, you remember the swimmer shops of the early 2000s? It was almost like that, but I mean, these two dickheads come up and give me a bag of dildos. They're like, hey, we lost your gym bag. I'm like, it's a purple gym bag. And I'm like, what are you assholes talking about? You know what I mean? Well, this one top tier guy, he's picking up used dildos and throwing them in his bag, and butt plugs and dildos and glass dildos and dongers. And like him and Steve, like, but they knew not to show it to anybody, but they get back and they're like, my guy just goes, here's your gym bag. I'm like, Jay, what do you mean? Jay's a retired Navy guy. I'm like, and I it's kind of
That was awesome.
This got some weight to
Yeah,
it.
this was awesome.
So I drop it on the ground, and the whole place is looking at me, right? The whole place is freaking staring at me because they know what's in the bag. I know what's in the bag. I'm like, oh my God, it's a fucking bag of dicks, right? A hot bag of dicks, right? So I look in, I reach in, there's this freaking black mom, and I pull it out, and I'm waving it around and shit, and everybody's hooting and hollering, but, you know, oh, a bunch of assholes. But it was a good stress reliever. So then I put the bag and I tied it up and I put it in a bucket that says "Do not open." And these big top tier guys I'd be telling them I couldn't get it open in my hands. And they're like,
You put it on the command thing.
big guy. And they rip this thing up. This dildo would fly out on a bungee cord and like hit him and shit like that. So it was a lot of comedy. It was a lot of fun. It lightened the mood, and you know, everybody was there to do a good job, but you had to have some release, you know. So
Well, you have to. We have dark humor, and it's okay. I'm gonna say it's okay to have the dark humor. We see and do some crazy things that most average people don't see and do. You have to have it,
and
the
it's a
only way
release.
we're gonna get through it.
It's a release, and you know, it was just. I mean, it was like I had to take a shower. Like I have to shower after every shit I take. You know, I'm like a 5-6 shower a day guy. 3 days into this, I'm like, I need a bath. So I'm dumping jugs of water on me. It's not working, you know. So I jump in the river with this other kid from Mobile, and all the civilians are like, oh my God, you're naked. I'm like, I'm taking a bath here. You know what I mean? I felt so good. It felt so good to take a bath, you know, after 3 days of not washing your ass. I don't know how guys do it in the Army. Fuck that. So
We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors. Attention all rescue professionals and tactical athletes. Ready Swimmer and the Real ResQ have teamed up to bring you the ultimate solution in tactical athlete training. Developed by military rescue professionals, our team boasts over 60 years of combined experience. Elevate your performance both physically and mentally with our individualized programming. Contact us at ReadySwimmer.com or through therealrescue.com and unlock your full tactical athlete potential. The question is, are you ready? All right, so I understand like the whole devastation side of it and searching for, you know, those who have lost their lives and stuff. Were you guys able to help anybody in particular? And I know there's a lot of medication that was delivered out there and just like welfare checks, anything like that stands out to you guys?
oh my, I mean, go ahead, guys, but I can talk all. I mean, go ahead.
I mean, insulin was a big one. Like,
I did hear that.
you know, a lot of people didn't even think of that. And
Yeah.
that couple that we met up with in Burnsville, they had a whole cooler full of insulin. So, you know, who would have thought of that going up in there? You know, everyone was thinking of the space heaters, the generators, clothing, stuff like that. But you know, these people showed up. They had a whole cooler full of insulin for people that were diabetic that needed it. So,
I mean, it was just we did so much. I drove around my truck and I drove around with the shirt, and just knowing that, like, all the guys that were all kitted up, they'd have the, you know, M4 hanging off the center of their chest. They didn't want to see that. The people just like me and this guy Cal, that's a JTAC guy, blue jeans, you know, like we all wore, just normal human beings coming up and providing just the emotional first aid to let them say, hey, we're here to help. We're here to do some cool stuff for you, whatever you need done, whatever it's. I mean, guys were. I mean, for God's sakes, Chris had to go put a generator in this lady's house in the refrigerator where he's like, you can eat this food, like, you know. And of course, she was an older gal, you know, and she's that cat lady typical. And he's like, you can't eat this. And she's like, oh, I'm just gonna heat it up again. She's like, no, it's terrible, you know. But then at night, as the dark humor set in, I'm like, so how much to sleep in her bed with her? One, how much is it gonna take?
Oh my God. All right. So I'll tell you what, Chris, bring us into the story. You literally helped this lady hook up a generator in her house to give her electricity and a refrigerator. And for the record, my dad did the same thing. Just going out there to give somebody power and a refrigerator. Amazing.
It was huge. A little backstory. I think it was about 9:00 at night. We were doing our debrief, and to be quite honest with you, I was ready to call it a night. She come driving up, and she was hysterical about not having power. And got with one of the Delta guys that was leading things, and he's like, "Hey man, do you think you could bring her a generator?" So we did, and I'm hooking it up. You couldn't walk. It had nothing to do with the storm, but you couldn't even really walk in her house. I mean, it was a hoarding kind of situation. But I'm trying to pull the fridge out, and she hadn't had power in a week. You could smell the food, and she said, "Oh, it's going to be fine." I filled the freezer slam full of ice right after I lost power. Well, all that ice melted, so now all that water is down on the bottom of the fridge. And I'm like, man, you cannot eat this. The fridge came open a little bit, and it was horrendous. Finally got that thing plugged in, and right as soon as I got plugged in, every light in her house came on, like they had restored power in that little tiny block. So it's kind of
nice.
It was certainly a good feeling. She embraced me for a little too long, and $20 certainly isn't enough.
Yeah.
But
he had poached eggs in the morning. Let's just say that.
No, but feelings like that. That was awesome. And then going back to what Claude said, driving around this truck one day, we had stopped in this plaza just because it was big enough for the truck and trailer, for no other reason than that, and to kind of get some logistics under control. As soon as we did, a few families drove up, and they were trying to knock on some doors, some medical offices and stuff. Claude, you remember this?
Trying to think.
One lady was running a hospice center. They were out of oxygen that particular day. I think within an hour, we had a helicopter landing and delivering, I don't know how many bottles of oxygen, and a truck. We had a truck go, and I don't know if the guys were able to get the truck in there and bring it to them, or if they had to hump it up to this community. But there was a bunch of people in hospice, completely out of oxygen that day. And we just happened to be sitting in this plaza and ran into these people. And not only insulin, too, like Steve mentioned, a big thing, and I'm not sure if you experienced this, Quinny, but did you realize how many bees were out there? We gave EpiPens to a ton of EpiPens. The bees' habitat was so screwed up from the mudslides that, people were getting stung left and right, and that was a huge problem. That would have never been on my radar.
Wow. Yeah. It's a lot of people that were at the Harley Davidson shop did mention that. Now, total full disclaimer on my end. I was not able to do any actual work to go out in the field and stuff. I did one flight, kind of flew over the area, and that was like day one for me. Day two was out in Swannona at the Harley Davidson shop. I helped with a handful of things, but my goal out there was to get the stories and really get some of the recording of what people were doing. So I was not in the field, and everybody that volunteered their time in the field, my hat's off to you guys, because like everybody was dirty, tired, working like dogs, and it was amazing to watch. If the floor needed to be swept, it was swept by whoever had time. It was amazing. And that's what I saw. It was awesome. So
definitely some long days there.
Oh yeah.
I don't think any day I was there it was under 12 hours. Every day was a 12-hour day.
But it would go
We'd
by
leave at 7:30. We didn't get home till, like Chris was saying, the most of the briefs were at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then we'd have to drive back up to the house. So they were long days, but well worth it. I'll go back again. They're going to need help out there for a very long time to come. I mean, the power. There is no power going up into those mountains, and I mean it's for miles and miles and miles. So they're going to be in the hurt locker for a long time.
Yeah, I know like power companies and some of the bigger companies are trying to get that stuff done. And again, this is talking to people that are doing this now. But you're right. I mean, they are Operation Hilo, one of the organizations. They're actually driving up like campers. Hook on the back of your trailer camper that people are going to live in throughout the winter until their house can get rebuilt.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are that are happening still, even now. So
I think it's worth a really big shout out too to the linemen, because while I was there, going from day 1 to day 6, just driving by and seeing all the poles and on the ground and all the power lines that we had to drive over, and then day 6, like, oh shit, that was where a pole was broke. There's a new one set already. So those linemen, man, are they're incredible. I saw hundreds of poles get replaced in my 6 days, and I know you did too, Claude, driving around.
Yeah, they would just go whole miles of road in a day. You're like, how did they cover that much ground? I mean, just crazy. It was just,
power lines being held up by like sticks that had like people would break off a big branch, that had a Y in it, and they would jam it up and hold a power line up over the road so we could drive under it,
Cut them. I'd start cutting them at the end. Like, it was still wrapped around stuff. I'm like, is it dead? I'm like, Connor, is it dead? He like hit it. I'm like, okay, it's dead. Let's cut it. You know what I mean? So, because like crazy stuff, like you never don't ever touch a down line. You're like, well, how the hell are we gonna get in here to rescue these people off these plows? So, just a lot of you've been thinking, if you got hurt out there, you were screwed. It wasn't like you're calling 911 and ambulance is coming. You're gonna have to carry out. Like I told guys, I'm like, don't do anything dumb to get yourself hurt, because you're gonna have to self rescue. You know what I mean? And it could be hours. If you break a leg, it's gonna be hours before you're even seen. So
even on scene, what happens? Throw that out there. And I don't know if anybody that got hurt, but thinking through that scenario, you get hurt out there, you have to wait to get back to the camp where you're based out of, and then you got to get like taken out to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. One of the makeshift medical centers that they had set up. Yeah. That's where you would have to go. Yep.
Yep.
Did you guys have to actually pull anybody like out of houses or areas and bring them to the airport, and then they fly out or go somewhere else? Did you have to get anybody like that?
No.
Or did everybody end up staying? The majority of the people you found?
They're proud people, man. They're not gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, they want. Dude, I had an old guy that had these dogs. Like, I got 8 dogs. Mr. Harlan goes, I got 8 dogs here. I'm gonna be able to take care of them all winter. And I'm like, man. So I'm like, well, you sell me a dog. He goes, I'll give you a dog. I said, hold on, Mr. Harlan. I said, I'm too proud to take something from somebody. I said, but can I buy a dog? He's like, yeah, I'll get you a dog right now. And he comes down the hill. He puts a dog on the back of my truck, and I'm petting her. I think I sent you pictures. And her name is Molly. He's Molly Hatchet. He says, I start laughing, and he goes, I said, how much, Mr. Harlan? He goes, how about $40? I said, Mr. Harlan, here's 200. He's like, oh my God. He put it in his pocket. He goes, I got more for sale. So I went back. And I'm like, I need about $1,000 to get the rest of these dogs. And dude, there was like people throwing money at us, and we got these dogs. And the thing about it, these dogs were like digging on a pile. So we thought there was a body there. And we're looking, and and he just can't take care of them. He's going to have a hard winter because, a lot of this stuff, like he did Christmas trees or something like that. He would sell auto parts. Like, that's all gone, So, long story short, we want to get these dogs. And Chris, like, you bring that dog home? I'm like, I'll get my ass shot. You know what I mean? So, and we didn't, but we wound up giving him, I think they auctioned them off. And yeah, it was pretty cool, man. They raised a bunch of money with them to give to people. So it was awesome, man. So, but she went up and she jumped out of the truck going 40, and some lady behind me is like, and of course I jammed the brakes on, and the lady behind me is like, did you hit that dog? I'm like, shut the fuck up. This thing ran up the fucking hill. So when I said up the hill, it felt like I hiked Everest, and it was probably only like 20 yards up the hill, because it was like 10 yards to a driveway, and there was like another 20 yards up the hill, but I couldn't catch her. I'm like, Molly, you gotta stop. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. So she's all dazed and confused. She fell out of the truck, and I'm chasing her up the fucking hill, and I get to the top, and I finally grab her, and I'm like, oh, thank God. And then I take a step, and I roll the whole fucking way down the driveway. Broke my ass. I had a bruise on my ass. I hit my elbow, and the dog is
Don't
like,
get hurt,
Claude. I'm rolling over the dog, and she's going, yeah. Self-rescue. You know what I mean? I'm like,
the back of your head got flattened too, a little bit.
Driveway, and everybody can look up. They go, are you all right? I go, I meant to do that. I jump up like a swimmer, and I'm like, I'm really fucked up right now. I'm like, mentally, I'm like, is there anything sticking out? No. I'm going to walk down with this dog. The dog is like got rolled over by a steamroller 3 times. So I carry her down, and she's in shock, even worse. So I'm like, shit, but yeah, the shit that happens on the planet stays on the planet.
Then you come home and get 2 more dogs.
Yeah, these assholes, another dog, these senior chiefs at freaking AL2 dumped 2 dogs off from some poor guy's father that died that works there. Now all of a sudden they're my dogs, and one almost got hit yesterday. It's been a shit show with dogs, dude.
Yeah. You're the dog whisperer.
Aw, buddy.
Yeah.
I got 2 that I need to get rid of too.
I got a beautiful male shepherd and a beautiful female pit bull. Sorry.
Okay.
My wife's lasagna's giving me indigestion.
I hate it when that happens.
I just hate lunch.
You did a great job. I'll tell you what, guys. You know what? There might be a few people on this podcast that might be listening that might be interested in dogs. If they reach out to me, I'll send them to you guys. All right?
Yeah, I'll
Send them to Claude.
Rob, mail them. I'll put them in a box. We'll give them some food and some water.
Claude gets really confused when he talks about that dog because usually he's saying he has a male stripper, not a male shepherd.
Yeah.
So.
I started a new business. Want to hear my new business name?
No, I don't actually.
Hook it, tow it, or grind it. What do you need?
Oh my gosh. Guys, I'm going to give you, we're coming up into about an hour. I appreciate the stories. If you've got any more that you want to share, please feel free, or any shout outs that you'd like to give. Steve, I'll start with you.
No, I just, my big thing, like I say, was shout out to everyone that was over there volunteering their time to help the people that really needed help. And it was truly amazing to see, how everything, like I said before, is so divided, and people just put all their differences aside to come together and help the people that were in need the most. And yeah, I mean, like I say, shout out to everyone that was over there, and I'll gladly go back. In a minute, I'll gladly go back.
I'll tell you what, when you and I get offline, you and I will talk about that a little bit further, because there are a couple of people that I'd love to get you in touch with to go out and help.
Absolutely.
So yeah, for sure.
And thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Absolutely 100% my pleasure. I'm glad this worked out. Thank you for sharing the stories. Chris.
Yeah, Quinny, on that same note, I want to get with you too, because I got a couple guys that want to go out, and I'm unsure of where to tell them to go. But I would say these non-government agencies that are doing the work, like the Sentinel Foundation, those guys were phenomenal. And I don't think enough people know about what these guys are doing. They're going out and rescuing exploited children all over the world, and they get these kids out no matter what they have to do. We heard some pretty insane testimony. But then also to kind of piggyback on what Steve said, just everybody out there, you don't have to be a special operator to find it in your heart to go help people in need. And those people were so appreciative. I think I got more reward out of that lady, hooking up her generator, which ultimately turned out to be for no reason, but just the feeling that it gave for to be able to help her out was pretty amazing.
Help her out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Claude.
Mm-hmm. Help her out. Mm-hmm.
Chris, that's good stuff, man.
So yeah, that's all I gotta say. But thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Claude, what do you got, man?
The Sentinel Foundation turned a rinky-dink operation at an airport to an incredible, well-oiled machine. The people that were at the airport, Banner Elk Airport, to open the airport up, huge. We raised a bunch of money for that couple that lost a lot of their home, and able to help rebuild. So that was cool. Everybody that gave money there, thank you. Been kind of busy, not being too gracious, but thank you for doing that. Anybody donate anything? Awesome. And, I just want to say, the swimmers, they're small. Like Justin called me, I called Justin. Justin's like, meet me here. Next thing you know, we're out doing cool things. So Justin Garringer, his East City shop, them 4 boys that went out there and kicked ass. There's other swimmers out there that were doing cool things. But yeah, just an awesome experience, And
there's a couple other people I'd like to recognize too, is Clay Yancey.
Oh yeah.
EJ Richardson, Josh Harris,
Mark Amon.
Connor Harris. So Connor Harris is homeschooled by Josh Harris, who's he's an AET chief. He took his son out there, and the whole time we were out there. So a big shout out to him, because he missed all his schooling and everything to go help these people in need. He's probably seen a lot of stuff that he probably shouldn't have seen or heard, but like I say, everything was aside. He went out there, young man, young teenage kid, to help the people. So Mark Amon, just some amazing people, and a huge shout out to them as well.
The kids from
Clearwater and Mobile. Yep.
The kids from Mobile, the kids from Clearwater, everybody that that came up, and that was awesome. They were there with us doing the same work we did. It was awesome. But yeah, man, it's just thanks, Quinny, for letting us tell the story. That's really important. So.
My pleasure. I thank you guys for coming on. I'm actually going to drop a quick little plug as well and say that anybody out there that's been helping or has done this, especially seeing like some of the things that they saw, there are help. Is talk to somebody, get it off your chest. Don't keep that inside. It doesn't help. So Fit for Duty, Operation Restored Warrior, and I could list about 1,000 places that you can go to talk to somebody to get it off your chest. Please do so. All right. So
awesome.
I know where Chris will be at the cat lady's house.
And
don't be $20
approved.
Yes. Yeah. It's going to take a little more than $20. I'm sitting here thinking about it.
20 to 20, Chris. 20 to 20.
Oh, man. Well, thanks again for having us, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
My pleasure. Thank you guys so much for coming on. When I get down to East City, I'm going to look all you guys up. We're going to go have a beer together. And
sounds great. Sounds like a plan.
All right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here.
Go.
Now it's time for me to pull chocks and take off. But before I go, I'm always looking for the memorable rescues that people have done. If you have one that you're willing to share or know somebody who has a story, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to highlight it here at the Real ResQ. For everybody that is standing by for that SAR alarm, remember, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. So until next time, fly safe and swim hard. Thank you for joining me today here at the Real ResQ Podcast, powered by Vertical Helicast. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode.
Bell is proud to sponsor Vertical Helicasts and their vision to hold meaningful mission, safety, and best practice conversations in the helicopter industry. The lessons learned from these conversations will undoubtedly shape the future of both new and veteran helicopter operators.
And attention all rescue professionals and tactical athletes. Ready Swimmer and the Real ResQ have teamed up to bring you the ultimate solution in tactical athlete training. Developed by military rescue professionals, our team boasts over 60 years of combined experience. Elevate your performance both physically and mentally with our individualized programming. Contact us at ReadySwimmer.com or through therealresq.com and unlock your full tactical athlete potential. The question is, are you ready?
We got to get down to team.
About 9:30 at night, day whatever, and I'm on a fucking mountaintop with my boys. I'm going to sleep in Dolly Parton's house tonight, bitches.